Hello and welcome to Soups and Sabers. My name is Jordan. With me today is Logan. How are you, Logan?
Hello there. Hi Jordan. I've not been underneath the new ribbon of
The new
Soups and
banner,
Savers.
yeah.
Yeah, this is new. This is a new world to me. So thanks for having me on. It's been quite some time.
It
I
has.
haven't heard that name in quite some time.
We look, our Bad Batch watch fell apart because of logistics pretty much in that case. We used to record those Sunday mornings, and now my son used to sleep. Now he wakes up at like 8 o'clock in the morning. So I don't get a chance to record those anymore. So maybe it'll come back at some point. We'll figure out something. But today is the 10th anniversary of The Force Awakens. I'm releasing this the day that it came out. The Force Awakens premiered in theaters on December 18th, 2015. Technically the 17th because of the Thursday special, previews. And we are here to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the new era of Star Wars that launched with the 7th episode of the Skywalker saga. Look, so I mean, I guess we can I went through old Facebook posts and everything to see if I shared any thoughts on the Disney sale. I did not. I guess I was not posting a lot when that was going on. Unless if the post got removed for whatever reason, but I could not find one of when this was announced. But I thought we'd kind of start with just some of the build up to it, because I think I texted you this, Logan. I think this might be the most documented Star Wars movie of all time, because social media was a thing. So a lot of these reveals are coming from StarWars.com putting something on the website or tweeting something out. J.J. Abrams sharing a picture, those type of things that were not things during the prequels. During the prequels, a lot of people's first looks, especially for Phantom Menace, was in that trailer that was in front of Meet Joe Black, that everybody went to see that movie just to see the trailer and then walked out. That type of style. And what I will say, though, is I remember after Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith, Lucas was pretty open with stuff that would be revealed and stuff, but you'd have to go to like StarWars.com and maybe you'd get picked up by like Entertainment Tonight or something. But it's a different world in social media when they can just share something and it gets picked up by every news outlet and fans retweeting it. And then with the age of podcasts as well, we have them, but also there's people that had podcasts when this was going on and talking about those things as they were happening. We weren't around yet, but it's good to have you back on, though, Logan, because actually, I always say this podcast started as a Marvel podcast because the feed that we're on was the To the Infinity Saga and Beyond feed. But in 2019, you and I launched the Pod Awakens right around the time of Rise of Skywalker, which was the end of this trilogy. We're now exploring the beginning of this trilogy. But so it's good to have you back on and talk about the sequel trilogy here on the podcast that kind of, has absorbed itself.
Yeah, I know we were a gateway into Star Wars. A lot of people hadn't seen it.
Yeah, I think we had like 4 episodes before we stopped, and then we came
everybody
back
else
for a
was,
bit, and then we stopped, and then we came back for a bit.
right now everybody's a fan of Star Wars because they found
Yeah.
out. No, yeah, it's funny. When you texted that, I was thinking, I am with you that even when Endgame came to theaters, I will say this is the most hyped I had been for a movie since Harry Potter in 2011, when Deathly Hallows Part 2 came out. And
to piggyback on that, I don't think there's been any other than this. Sorry,
I just muted you on accident. Oops, my bad. You're done talking.
You didn't agree with me. What I was about to say.
I hit the wrong mute.
I don't know if there's ever been any other movie that I've been this excited for in the build up to it. since, you know, I there's a reason in my notes I started with the sale to Disney, because that was October 30th, 2012. I remember that day being online and seeing that and being like, what? One, because I love Disney, right? I assume you do as well. We met there.
I spend time there every once in a while. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
um,
For people who
I
don't know, Logan and I met at the Disney college program. We were roommates. So we met in August of 2013. So like at this point, that was already announced. And we remember there was like the hints at like D23 and stuff that they were going to be doing something Star Wars, but they still didn't like officially say what it was. It wasn't until like 2015 that they unveiled what Galaxy's Edge would become. But I remember sitting in our apartment talking about like, oh, you know, they're going to do something Star Wars now that they own it, and like trying to figure out like we were always kind of speculating on what we would want to do with that and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because it was at a time where the parks were in major transition between things, and like
Some
2013
still
turned
are.
like like I will say though, when we spent time, yeah, it could be for the next decade. But when we started our program, Jordan, like that was the time when like Disney had Lucasfilm in hand. They were starting to transition the parks because they had Star Wars weekend. I remember I went to one Star Wars weekend, and that was when I believe I returned in 2015 was the last year they had it.
Yes, and
Um,
it was my first and last Star Wars weekend as well.
yes, and I met, um, oh gosh, what's the bounty hunter's name? Is it Dam?
Sam Wessel.
Sam Wessel, yes.
I got a picture of
And
her too.
I was gonna say I couldn't remember who it was, but I remember meeting her, and I remember the hype around it, and I was excited to be there, but we had to leave because we had to go work. But again, I was just eh, everything was so exciting and fresh. And then that'll get later into 2015 when this starts to happen. But like you said, I remember sitting down with you thinking like, what could Disney do with Lucasfilm? And I went back and read a bunch of the articles from like all the
Yeah.
Disney park blogs and stuff like that. The amount of excitement and how much everybody thought Disney was going to do with it. And um, just it's funny to read all that back and go, man, because I think a lot of people argue that Disney hasn't quite done what they wanted to with Marvel or Star Wars yet. At least, you know, to the hype that I think people thought they were going to do with it. Like I think people had really, really high expectations, and I think that kind of set up Star Wars and Lucasfilm for failure right away. But that being said, once Force Awakens comes around, that starts to change.
Yeah, I think I definitely remember there being negative thoughts with the sale. I
Yeah.
definitely remember people being negative about it. But what I'll say is I also think there was a lot of optimism in that time as well, more than what is currently going on social media nowadays anyway, because people were, I think, excited to get a new story in uh Star Wars Episode VII, The Return of Luke, right? That's kind of like I remember when that was announced, like people making fan posters, like that night. There was fan posters of like Tatooine and seeing Luke from behind, and he's doing something powerful with the Force or whatever. And it's kind of interesting looking back at that and seeing maybe a little bit more optimism than what exists nowadays on any space online, I guess. But you know, people were really excited to be going back into the world of Star Wars. At that point, it had only been 7 years since Revenge of the Sith when it was announced, 2012. They announce it and they say, "Hey, we're going to be doing Star Wars Episode VII. That's what we're doing. We're doing a new trilogy, starting with Episode VII." They also said they'd be doing some other stories, right? But when they announced the sale to Disney, they said for $4 billion, by the way, they said, "All right, we're gonna make a new trilogy." And that leads to January of 2013 when J.J. Abrams is announced as the director of the movie. Some people that were also in the running, Jon Favreau, which I think is really funny because he is about to have his Star Wars movie next year for Mandalorian and Grogu. Lawrence Kasdan and Simon Kinberg were like story consultants at this point. Kasdan ends up writing with JJ, while Kinberg, by the way, I thought that was interesting. I didn't remember him being a consultant on this, but he is working on the new trilogy that is coming out. So if it comes out, right? We're always in that state of Star Wars movies at this point. Back then, we knew movies were coming out. Nowadays,
that's just Disney overall. That's entertainment overall. It's just like, is that movie still coming out? And they're like, shh, don't talk about it.
But before that, Michael Arndt, who did some of the Toy Story scripts, was writing it. He couldn't crack it. October, he leaves. So this is why we're on program. I remember this because I think this is when they pushed to to December of 2015. Originally, it was supposed to come out in May, and then they pushed it to December because then Kasdan and JJ had to take over. And then in January, the script is complete. And on April 28th, they share a black and white version of this. I don't know if this was colorized or if this is from the behind the scenes documentary, but the table read photo here. And I remember people studying this, and I studied it too, as we're like, oh, look, there's Mark Hamill, and there's JJ talking to Harrison Ford, and there's R2 in the back, and you're trying to figure out like how is everybody related here? What's the thing? It was just like the first glimpse that you could get of this. Do you recall at all the table read photo? Do you remember this getting shared?
Yes, because I always thought it was really funny that R2's like in a box. They were like, I was always like, they couldn't just pull him out of the box.
Didn't they do that at D23 as well? Like I thought when they were doing really like weird Blue Harvest hints, like it was a box with R2 in it. It was
very strange. Yeah, I remember this photo because of R2. And I remember
he's there, but he's just in his own little cubby.
Yeah. Another thing that I loved seeing was Carrie Fisher talking to Daisy Ridley, because people right away were like, because
she's between them. She's between the two. They're like, that's the daughter, right?
Yes. Yes. I remember that, and I remember them thinking yes, I remember that thinking that she was the daughter, but then I was also like, they were also very hyped because they're like, oh, well, she's in good hands. Not that Daisy Ridley needed Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
But like people are like, oh, well, at least Carrie Fisher's there to guide her in the right way if she's going to be the main Jedi, which, that was a big thing, obviously, too, was to now have the main protagonist be a woman. I think that was a big shift in Star Wars and pretty much in any Isn't that crazy, Jordan? Like around 2013, 2014, that's when we started to see a major shift towards women being the lead role. It took that long.
I think it was actually 20 because it wasn't a big deal here. You know what the big deal was? We'll get to it, I guess. But the big deal, I feel like, that people were upset about, because I feel like people were okay with this at first, but I think there was definitely a segment of people that were bad faith actors and people that were genuinely confused that Finn was a stormtrooper. There was people saying he can't be black because he is not a clone. And I'm like, the clones were already phased out by the time of episode 4. But anyway, that's the nerd stuff there. But then there were people that were upset that we were getting a person of color as a main protagonist in the story. That is when I feel like Force Awakens kind of overcame that. But I did see a lot of those complaints. They were fringe people. They were people on that fringe. Now that is something that dominates stuff all the time, sadly, where, what was it I just saw the reaction to, had a female lead and people were losing their minds. And it was
a Wonder Girl movie?
Yeah, Supergirl. Yeah, it was Supergirl. And they're like, oh, we're getting another. Supergirl's been a comic book character forever. Like, whatever. Like, it just kind of is what it is at that thing. But like, you know, there was a Supergirl movie in 1980s. I don't remember anybody being, well, I wasn't around then, but there definitely weren't anybody being like, oh, what are they doing? You know, like it's kind of been co-opted by a certain segment of fans, and it gets, I guess, pushed more because people have podcasts and YouTube channels where they can spread those thoughts. So
I
that
I
happens.
I do remember there were video reactions to little girls reacting to Ray. I do remember that very
Yeah.
vividly, of girls crying and wanting
That
to be
actually
Ray.
was in the Hollywood Studios thing for a while. At Launch Bay, they had like a
Yes.
short film in
Yep.
front of it where like Pablo Hidalgo and all these Lucasfilm people are like, look at what it means to these people, and they show like little girls meeting Ray, and they show uh just a whole bunch of different people, like, you know, reacting and being thrilled about it. So yeah, but then yeah, it's also been spread online, but I just remember it being officially done on that little film as well, which I guess isn't open anymore at Launch Bay. I know they're closing
No,
Launch
that's
Bay, but I
gone.
mean, like, they used to have the film for a while. Then I think they just had the little bare bones stuff inside of there.
Yeah, all that's gone now. Ray meets over in front of the Falcon. So
Yeah. Okay. So then in November of 2014, the titles revealed. I remember exactly where I was when this dropped. I don't for the table read photo. I assume I was at home or something or at work. But for the title reveal, I was in my class at college, and I was waiting for class to start, and it had, like, just broke right before like the professor walks in. You know, I'm sitting there at the table like scrolling on my phone, like, oh my god, we have a title now. And it was November 6th, 2014. They also announced that it had wrapped principal photography, and it revealed it was The Force Awakens. That kind of became a big deal because people were making memes about that the whole time, about like the Force sleeps, the Force, you know, awakes, takes a nap, all that kind of stuff. I personally liked the title quite a bit, but I thought I have a fun fact here. Pablo Hidalgo, who was one of the story group people at Lucasfilm, was answering people back in 2015 on alternative titles. Said that for a while it was called Shadow of the Empire. They had to change that because there is a expanded universe book that was called Shadows of the Empire. So to kind of, I guess, restrict some confusion, they kind of talked JJ into to not naming it Shadow of the Empire.
I can say it's my favorite of the
Title
titles. Mm-hmm.
out of all 9.
Yes, out of all 9. I think, I don't know, Jordan, like it just, it's so hard to explain, and it's so weird that there are going to be people listening to this that were like really small children that didn't, know what this buildup was like. I mean, like you said, I mean, we had left Star Wars when I was a kid, and really didn't pick back up with it until I was an adult. And it was it's such a cool moment because it's bringing back the characters I grew up with, and then it was huge. I mean, this was honestly, there's probably gonna be studies on this. Like this is one of the biggest, I think, movie press junket. Like everything was
Yeah.
online. I remember following this. I remember you texting me when it came out that the title had come out. I was sitting in class or right before a class. And I did. I was like, this title, I like this title. Just because it was like an awakening of like my childhood. Like it, I'd kind of moved on from that and gotten into other things, a lot of sports. But this was a key part, and that's what's funny for you and I. A key part of you and I's childhood were the prequels, and it's amazing that like we got such a weird gap. We've got the before and the after. It was yeah, it's something I look back on fondly because of how important it was, I think, for so many fans.
Yeah, it's it's crazy just thinking about it, because earlier this year we did the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. We did a special just like this with Ron and Tommy Bechtold coming onto the pod to talk about it. And the gap was 10 years, right? 10 years between movies here. What is crazy is that we are now the same amount of time from Force Awakens to now than we were from Revenge of the Sith and Force Awakens. It felt so much longer between Revenge of the Sith and Force Awakens. One, there just wasn't as many, there wasn't any Star Wars movies other than the Clone Wars film, and our only fix was animated TV show. There was no live action Star Wars at all.
And playing back video games that we
yes. Yeah. And that was that. I remember going to see, I told this story probably on the Revenge of the Sith line. I remember going to see that opening night and kind of thinking to myself, this is it. This is the last Star Wars movie. We're done.
Yep.
Like, soak it in, dude. You're 14 years old. This is the last Star Wars movie you're going to see in theaters. And we thought that was done. Like, it was done. George said it's 6 movies. This is the last one, right? That's what George is saying. And you're going in saying that concludes Anakin Skywalker's story. We know everything now. What else could there be? Then I'm diving into the books and I'm doing that kind of stuff to get the story of what happens after, right? Because that was all that was left. All that was left was the expanded universe. Disney buys it and says, we're not going to do any of that. And I know that's a touchy subject for people, but it was really the only way they could go, because you don't want to just make live action movies of these novels where everybody would already be able to know everything and spoil stuff for people. And I mean, remember when Game of Thrones was big and people would have to try to dodge book spoilers? Imagine that, but with one of the biggest franchise of all time, Star Wars, and people being like, well, I know what happens in a book that takes place 20 years after the movie we're about to watch. It's like that. You can't do that. You just can't. So
Harry Potter,
you throw that stuff away, but at least those, like, the books were coming out concurrent.
Yeah. Towards the end they were.
Right. Yes, towards the end they were really close,
Yeah.
But with this, it's just, this was always a movie franchise. Technically, I know the first book of the novelization came out before the movie. That happened. But I'm just saying, like, this wasn't George writing a novel and then making a movie. This was always a movie franchise. So to then have it be based off of books would be weird at the end of it. And some of the stuff in the EU is good. Some of the stuff is not. I mean, that's kind of back where we are right now with probably the current chronologically expanded stuff, because some of it's good, some of it's kind of okay, some of it's not good. But you had to start fresh. You had to start fresh and just take what worked and put it into the stories here. I think The Force Awakens is a good title because it kind of tells everybody this is a new story. Come join us. You're going to see some of the characters you love, but it's also going to focus on these new characters. Shadow of the Empire sounds cool, but almost sounds like it is a continuation of something where people might not want to jump in. They say, oh, this sounds like the Empire fell, didn't it? Like, so is this a continuation of the, like, Force Awakens sounds like, all right, we're kind of starting over. Something is awakening. We can dive in. So probably a good move in that regard for me. And it wasn't too long after that first title that we got the first teaser, which was on Black Friday, November 28th, 2014. Do you remember this? Because I remember where I was. So my wife and I were dating at the time, and we were staying in the guest room because my bed in my bedroom when I lived at my parents' house was a a twin, so we can't stay. She was staying the night, so we were in what used to be my sister's room, and I just remember waking up and seeing people like, "It's here, it dropped." I think we had known the day before that it was announced, and I like woke up, pulled it up on Twitter or whatever, and watched it and had the biggest grin on my face when you get that triumphant Star Wars trumpet as the Millennium Falcon takes off in the sky after they say the light side. So it was just one of the. I was just rewatching these. I was telling you, I was just rewatching these yesterday while folding laundry, and I watched all 3 trailers, and I cried. Like, I teared up a bit again because I'm like, this is what it was about, man. It just takes me back.
Yeah, I think same thing. I was definitely home from school, college, and I do remember my friend was over. He was not a Star Wars person, but I remember it coming out. Um, it was a big deal, and I remember, again, like you said, when the Millennium Falcon, um, when it says light and it takes off and it does that big loop.
Yeah,
I
the
think all
cool
the feels
barrel.
come back, and I watched it again, um, and you're just, you know, you're hearing all the similar noises, the similar sounds, the music.
Mm-hmm.
It just, yeah, it felt good. I remember that. I remember getting chills. Like, I'm very much if we watch something, I will 9 times out of 10 get a chill when
Oh
it's
yeah.
something that hits, and it's crazy because it's stuff like this. It's stuff like the '90s TV shows that I'll watch and I've seen 100 times, Jordan, and I still get the reaction that I got when I first initially watched it.
Yeah, we get so that was a lot of fun speculation at the time of, oh my god, look, the Millennium Falcon, like we're
Yep.
back. People, seeing characters like Finn and Rey, and at that point we didn't know their names. It was literally,
That's the one that
what is
showed the
that?
back
What is
of
this?
Kylo, right? Like, that's how it
Yes, in
ends
the
when
woods
he's
with the
back and he does the
crossguard.
and you
Yeah,
never see
yeah.
that in the movie, but he does it's like a weird, like, and then it's just the back of him, and you see
Yes.
that lightsaber, and I'm like,
It's a cut
"Oh,
scene
man."
from Starkiller Base when he
Yeah.
fights Finn. It is just like, I think we see it from the front, but like he has
Yes.
his hood down, like,
Yep.
but it is a reverse shot of that, which took place, I think, before
Okay.
he,
Yeah.
I think it's before he force pushes Rey into the tree. That is supposed to take place, but yeah, they cut it, and it's a cool trailer shot though. It's really
It's a
great
great
trailer shot.
shot because it's just like you can hear him walking in the snow, and all of a sudden he does and he does the thing, and you're like, "Who is that? Who is that person?" So,
Yeah, and we had no clue. We were like,
no,
"Yo, is
no
this
idea.
what?" Everybody's like, "What Darth is this? Darth what?"
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
that leads into December 11th, 2014. I remember where I was for this, dude. Topps trading cards. They did these cool 1977 retro-esque Topps trading cards with frames from the teaser, but it has little descriptions with the character names. And this is where we got the character names. You know where I was when where I most remember seeing this? It probably came out a little earlier than that, but I was catching up on it from work because I was working at a grocery store. I couldn't really have my phone out a lot. So I was on my lunch break, Burger King right across the street from there, and I'm in line getting ready to order my food, and I'm scrolling through these pictures of these trading cards, which I'll put up here. And I mean, the first one I probably saw, I think, was this one, BB-8 on the move. And you're like, okay, BB-8. He was already like a favorite after that teaser 2 weeks before. And this is 2 weeks later. We're getting the name, and you're like, that sounds like a droid. That would be BB-8. That's a great name. Like, some of this stuff just really, you know, like flows. You know
BB-8
when
is
you,
BB great.
yeah,
That's
you
what
get a
it
Star
is.
Wars name sometimes, and you're like,
Yes, you do.
that's a Star Wars name. Star Wars.
Yes.
Like Poe Dameron is a Star Wars name, but people did not like this name. People did not like Poe as his
I
name.
love Poe. It's, you know what it is? It's literally because of that Teletubby.
Oh.
It is that damn Teletubby, because all of us growing up, that was our age.
Yeah, Edgar Allan Poe. That's who he, right? Like, come
It's a
on.
solid name.
But yeah, so we get Poe Dameron in his X-Wing. This is when we hear it's Kylo Ren, not a Darth. And everybody was like, what? What is this? Kylo Ren.
I remember there was a lot of talk around like what Kylo meant, as if that meant something. They're like, what is that? Because you know how Darth meant.
Yeah,
You know,
instead it's the reverse. It's
kind of like,
the
what is
Ren.
Kylo? Like,
The Knights
what
of
is
Ren.
it? No, but it's the Ren. So well, I do remember that. I remember being, and then people were like, what is that? Where does that come from? Is it a creature? And I was like, a creature wielding a lightsaber? Like, I think this is a person. This looks like a person.
Yeah. And I remember people thinking that those things are blades instead of the
Yes,
crossguard.
me too.
It's very like, it almost like looks like a heating vent coming out of the side. It looks so cool.
It's the best. I think it's the best saber. I know people will say Darth Maul's got a sick saber, but I love Kylo Ren's saber.
Oh yeah, I love Kylo Ren's too. This is when we find out her name is Rey. At this time, the leaks were saying her name was Kira. So this really threw people for a loop. Kira being Kira, I believe. So this really threw people for a loop because I was all in that stuff where I'm reading stuff on the spoiler.
I remember that
subreddit
name
and stuff,
Yep.
leaks,
I remember that
and
name.
people. And you know what? I have the art book for this, and I should probably dig it back up because I do believe they mention that it was a working name for her at some point. So I believe they changed Rey's name, from what I recall, to Rey right before shooting, like really close to shooting. So this really threw people for a loop. They were like, what? Like everybody had been calling her Kira based off of the leaks when it came to the teaser trailer. So it was pretty funny to see people react to that. And we had Finn on the run. So this kind of, people kind of then realized, oh, this is a stormtrooper maybe running away. We also thought maybe he was just wearing this as like Han and Luke do, where they're using it as a disguise. Because I don't think there's any shot of him in this trailer of him doing anything like that, like where you see him being a stormtrooper. Then it says stormtroopers prepare for battle. We had X-Wings information. One of my favorite shots of the movie is this, X-Wings flying very low over the water. And of course, the Millennium Falcon from that great shot too. So that's all of the trading cards that were revealed, and that's how they revealed the characters' names, which I thought was a really cool way to do that. Kind of spread out the hype as well, instead of it just being like, here's the trailer. It's like 2 weeks later, oh, here's all the character names. I think that's a really cool way to do it.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't. What would have been really weird is if they'd have set up like directors' chairs, Jordan, and put the names
for hours.
for what was it? Like the amount of time that Star Wars has been on, like just for like 48 hours. It's like, oh, this is good. This is what I wanted. Like this is. I would
watch it, man.
We all would have.
How many times? I loved the Avengers reveal.
It was fun,
but no,
I do like that it took so long. People were so angry.
That was the perk. That was the day I was working from home, so I literally just had it on the whole time.
I had it on my phone at work.
And I had it on my TV, and I'm just sitting here like excited with each name that dropped. Yeah. That was fun. This, though, I just remember like studying these, like the whole, like I was like, I need to know these names. These are new Star Wars names. I'm like,
it's like getting new players on your team.
Yeah. Pete Alonso, right?
Yeah. Who's this guy? Where'd he come from? I remember zooming in on these photos, trying to figure things out. Like I remember like trying to like zoom in on the cards on the phone, and I'm like, this gives me nothing.
I don't think I did. I don't think I did.
I remember doing it.
My thing was always just about like I needed to know this by the back. This is what's weird about Star Wars, though, is the way that the run up to all of this stuff happens, even in the prequels and stuff. I know these character names so well before I even see the movie. I have action figures of them before I see the movie. I have all this stuff before I even see the movie. Like, I remember Revenge of the Sith. I say this a lot. I read the book, which was the novelization. It came out like a month before the movie, and I read that whole thing before I saw the movie. So, and also just a lot of the prequel Jedi, like I knew their names from like Wikipedia articles or the Star Wars data bank on their website, and action figures that, it's just always there in the back of my mind. While so for this, it was like, oh my god, we're getting new Star Wars stuff. Like, okay, her name's Rey. Like, okay, that's interesting. His name's Kylo Ren. What is a Kylo, right? Like you said, like everybody think it's the first part instead of the last part. You have people speculating on BB-8 and Poe Dameron. Oh, so like, especially with having the last name for Poe Dameron, really made people think Rey and Finn were related to. Look, this is how people literally thought. They thought Finn was related to Lando because they didn't share his last name, and because Lando is one of the only other black characters we have in Star Wars, that people took that and ran with it. With Rey, people were like, is she a Skywalker? Is she a Solo? Like, why are they hiding her last name? And the answer to that is apparently she's a Palpatine, but they didn't know that at the time, and they really had no clue what they were doing. That's why they didn't put her last name there.
I have a feeling one person didn't know what they were doing. I think somebody else came back and went, maybe this is how we fix this.
Yeah.
I think if you gave him the whole arc, it would have been a little bit better thought out of like, who the hell is she? Because in Force Awakens, she just says, I'm basically nameless. I'm nobody. My parents were, what did she call them? Tinkers. So she didn't even know. Like, she was like, I'm not important.
It's, you know what? We'll get there. I have a special section where we'll kind of talk about that. So then after this, we kind of go a while until I'm back down at Disney again. I don't think you are until May, but April 16th, 2015, Star Wars Celebration took place, I think, in Orlando. I wasn't able to go, but I was listening to so many podcasts about it. April 16th, 2015, they released the Celebration teaser, which is the Luke narration. The Force is strong with my family. It's our first look at Luke, where we see him put his, droid hand on R2. We see, the cool Star Destroyer crashed on the on Jakku. And then we get just some more it's just all the quotes from Luke from his speech in Return of the Jedi, and that's all you get. And then you get some cool shots, but it ends with the Chewie "We're home," which of course was the money shot of that. That is what everybody was quoting and loving.
They had a media event at Hollywood Studios where they showed this trailer, and I remember this, and then I looked it up. It's on YouTube, so if you want to go back and watch, it's pretty cool. But they had media watching this, and I remember them being in Orlando,
like a reaction video.
Yes, and I remember them reacting to the trailer being shown, because they show it at this. Like, I don't think anybody was there. I think it was just a trailer, and then the guy that does the emceeing for Disney. But they showed it to, I think, media members, Jordan, and then all hell broke loose, and then all sorts of events happened, which I know we'll get to that coming up. But I do remember the reaction from the Celebration teasers. It was.
I was in my Chatham apartment.
Yeah.
I was in Chatham watching it on my phone or the computer, my laptop in the room, and my roommate Andrew, I think, was out at work or something, and then I was kind of geeking out about it later in the day. But it was just a really good trailer. Like, it is perfect.
I'm pretty sure, Jordan, I walked around and was quoting my father had it. Yeah. I have it. You have
my
it.
sister has.
Yeah. I think I walked around like
you have that power too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a great line where people are, and this is the first time we get to see the Darth Vader melted hat, helmet and everything. So that was a really great visual.
Luke's hand too. Was that Luke's hand on R2?
Luke's hand on R2.
Yep.
And then in Comic-Con in July, we get the behind the scenes sizzle reel. My big the thing I remember the most out of that is the real sets, practical effects, like Mark saying that, and they're really putting the emphasis that there wasn't a lot of CG in it because of how people reacted to the CG in the prequels. They were really pushing, this is like the originals. But it was a short behind the scenes sizzle reel. The next thing would probably be September 4th, 2015. One of my favorite times. It was Force Friday. Everything launched at midnight, and I went shopping with my mom. Force Friday, hitting midnight, we went down to like 2 or 3 different Targets and Walmarts, just like in the area, going to as many as we could to find stuff. I got the BB-8 Sphero droid, that's remote control with the app and everything. I got that night. It was like $100 or something I spent on that. I got some probably like Funkos and action figures. My mom got a couple of the 3/4 inch action figures. And it just felt like Christmas. It felt like Christmas so early I think we then went down to the Disney store that was in our mall, one of the malls, later that day or that weekend, where they had stuff going on there too. But it was everywhere that year, right? Like Star Wars was like back. You don't see a lot of merch drops like this anymore, where you have like signs in the store that say like Star Wars and like the stuff hanging from the ceilings. Kind of stuff doesn't really happen anymore. In fact, it's kind of depressing to go in any brick or mortar store lately because they just keep cutting sections of stuff and keep putting out the cheapest crap imaginable.
All right, so I've got a fun one on this one. So I was on the college program. This would have been September 3rd, going on to the 4th.
Yeah.
And I worked late because it was at Magic Kingdom. And so we got to set up the store. And our store had the leader. I remember this very
What
vividly.
store is this? Fantasyland, right?
Fair. Yes, this is the one right outside PhilharMagic.
Okay.
There was a pretty big like shelf that had like all sorts of like.
They put Star Wars stuff there too, just because of this.
Yes. So I remember this specifically because as soon as the shop closed, one of our leaders came in, and leaders got emailed like what it's supposed to look like with the person that was coming in to design it. The person that came in with them, and he put in it was just a Force Awakens. It had Kylo. It was like the one with him, Kylo, and Rey, and all of them kind of in that poster shot. And they put it on top of the little shelf, and he just placed it. And then our leader came in and he had the sheet, and on their sheet it tells you merchandise that was being released. But on the merchandise SKU, I don't think anybody thought anything of it, but it was like so on the SKU it has the barcode as numbers, but on the top of it has like an explanation of what things were. And, it was like Rey and them, but on one of them it said Benso, and we're like, I don't know what that means. So we were like, yeah, whatever. So we put it out, and then nobody's thinking anything of that. So we're like putting out different objects, and we're just stocking it. And then as we're stocking it, it kind of goes, and nobody thinks anything of it. But then on our shelf forever, like in the stocking area, it said Benso on Kylo Ren's toy. I'm like, I don't know what that means. So forever it was labeled Benso, and I'm pretty sure it means Ben Solo. I'm pretty sure Disney had. So on the thing, on the sheet, it says don't distribute, like on the leader's sheet. It's like an email that he gets, and it's got like red on it. And it's like, so yes, there's the toy. And Jordan, this toy, we sat and played with this toy for like hours as we were closing because we had to put it out. So we're like putting this toy out, and we're like clicking on his chest. And I could go through all of his lines, and forever I would walk around because there's one line in particular I was obsessed with, and it says, is it true you're just a scavenger? Which he never says, but he says them. It's kind of broken up into pieces. He says scavenger at one point. He says, is this true? But Jordan, I could run through his lines. This doll here, I should have bought. You can still buy them pretty cheap, and I think you can buy them through Disney Store still. But this is my memory. I remember taking this out, and his lightsaber. His lightsaber came in this huge box, and it had like the little. So you hung it up by the little. What are they called again on the side of his lightsaber? The little red things.
Oh, like the
part of the saber.
Yeah, the cross guard.
Yes. So you hung it up on the shelf by that. But it had that, and then they had his mask. They had Rey's outfit, but then they had all the droids that they were going to have in it too. They were like little droids that were in little boxes. So we got to set up that display. So I remember it fondly. I remember we had a friend that worked at Disney Springs. Once Upon a Toy did a midnight release, which I didn't remember this. I had to look this up because like, did they really? I looked it up. Jordan, people were in line for like 4 to 5 hours as Disney Springs closed.
I'm sure it was a mess there.
It was wild.
You know, at this point I was back home from my Disney program. So my mom and I are going around our little town, and it was crazy. Yeah, you've seen our little town. It was crazy at like Target and stuff. Just at midnight, everybody rushing in there and getting toys. And I did every Force Friday. So I think they did one for Rogue One. And then they did one for Last Jedi and for Rise of Skywalker, but they did not do one for Solo, I believe. But the Rise of Skywalker one was kind of fading at that time. They didn't have as much stuff, and they also had Mandalorian stuff releasing because it was around that same time. So, but like the Force Awakens and Last Jedi Force Fridays merch was everywhere, packed with the stuff in the stores. Now, if you go to the stores, there's like a little Star Wars section and barely any toys.
I remember going to the Emporium one of the days later on, and like one of those whole rooms was Force Awakens. I remember it specifically, and like I remember people coming in, and people didn't know who he was, and they were buying everything. They were like,
"That's the thing." There are people. I mean, like, look. Star Wars fans will buy a lot of stuff, especially back then when it was a little bit more, it had been a long time since a big release like this. But yeah, there was a toy. You can probably still find him around. His name was Constable Zuvio, and he was a character in the movie that was in the behind the scenes footage as well from that sizzle reel. And people were like, "Oh my God, he looks cool." And they cut most of his stuff, and he's like pretty much just like in 3 seconds of footage in the actual movie. But people were buying that, but also he would be like the one figure left on the pegs when you're in the store because people had no clue who Constable Zuvio is.
Right.
And, he doesn't really appear in the movie that much. But like when it came to like the Han Solo figures, because I don't think they made a Luke figure until later because they were really keeping him under wraps. So it was like Ben... Kylo Ren's, it was Chewie and like Rey, Finn, Poe, Han Solo. Those were the toys everybody was buying. And like Captain Phasma.
Phasma was big. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, because people were like, "Oh my God, a chrome stormtrooper. This is awesome." But that was just a really good day. I think I had to work that day too. So I was out until like 2 a.m., get home, and then
did you get things and go to work? Did you get things from that?
What do you mean?
Like toys? Did you get?
Oh yeah. I got this thing here.
Okay.
I got that, the BB-8 Sphero droid, remote control. That was cool. And then I probably got some like Funkos and because that's what I was heavily thinking. And I probably got a Black Series or two action figure if I could find them of like I don't know, what did I get? Everything's packed away, so I actually have no clue.
Funkos were huge. Like that was when Funkos were like
they were really big then, and I was really starting my big collection of them. But like this guy back here, I got my Crimson Corsair, Sidon Athano, Funko Pop. He's my favorite background character in a Star Wars movie. He's just so cool looking. So that was something I ended up getting as well. I don't know if that came out then or if that was a later wave, but I mean, I was buying a lot of stuff. Okay, and then in October they did the trailer, the Who Are You trailer, and we get the It's True All of It lines, and it was really building at that point to being just a phenomenal experience as we were building up to it. So that was during Monday Night Football. I remember watching. I actually have a picture on my Instagram of me taking a picture of Mike Tirico introducing it. I shared that. I shared that. Tirico being like,
"Yeah,
now it's the Force Awakens," and then they fade out and the trailer starts, and you watch it like a million times as you're trying to see what's going on. This is still before I was podcasting, so I didn't have any outlet at any point of that, but it was just fun. I also remember vividly looking at the Philadelphia Union game. I was staring at this cover. They did a whole special in Entertainment Weekly of this, but this had come out and I was like, oh my God, this looks great. And I'm like, this drops while I'm at the game. So I'm like watching the game, but also reading these articles about the Force Awakens that I'm like, I need to know what's happening. And then I found my copy of it. I went to a store and found it on August 19th. So that was a fun memory as well. But then we get to the actual release of the movie. And I have this moment where I've been so hyped for it. So obviously you're worrying that it's not going to meet your expectations. And I get in there and I'm sitting, we had this is before you could do assigned seats. Even though this is only 10 years ago, this is before assigned seating somehow. It was at a Regal Cinemas, and we had to get there early, get in line, pick out seats, put our coats down on it, while we're switching out to the bathroom and concessions. And, we're watching the trailers, and then we get the blue font on the black background that says "A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away." But right before that came up, right when you get to the Lucasfilm and all that, I kind of closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and said, you're about to see some new Star Wars. Just kind of remove any expectations right now and enjoy this experience. And we get that blue font with "A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away." And I swear, Logan, to you, it was the longest gap between that and the fanfare of the that I've ever had. It felt like the longest, because that was a moment too where I'm like, okay, literally the opening crawl is about to start, and it felt like it was this long break in between that. And then of course you watch it on TV and it's like the normal gap between it. But it was just at that moment I was so excited for it that it felt like I almost had my heart in my throat and my, taking a deep, trying to gain my composure as I'm like, all right, a long time ago in Galaxy Far, Far Away popping up, which means any moment your ears are going to be blasting with this song and you're going to be reading the opening crawl. And it was a very surreal experience. The opening crawl starts and it says, Luke Skywalker has vanished. And you're like, what? And it's I always recommend to go see a Star Wars movie more than once, even if you're not a fan of it, because it passes by like a whirlwind. And reading that crawl was so surreal, where I'm like, I'm actually reading a new Star Wars crawl, but I'm also trying to process what it's saying to me. I'm like, okay, Luke Skywalker has vanished. All right, so that's true then, because there was rumors that he wasn't going to be in it much, and you're like, obviously they haven't shown him, so you're like, okay, well, he's not here, but we know he's in it, so we'll get to that, I guess. And then you're reading all this stuff, and you're like, huh, okay. just a very, very weird experience after such a long gap. But I still feel like I got that way in Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, where I'm like, you're about to read a brand new opening crawl, so like pay attention and like soak it in and try not to think about what you're thinking about this movie until you get to the end of it. What was your experience like in theaters that first time?
Yeah, so this was in, but I don't remember exactly what day it was. It was definitely in between a very busy time because when you're working
Yeah.
at Disney, I remember having to go to, I believe it was City Walk. It was not Disney's theaters because I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going to Disney's theaters
Yeah, it was probably
around this
packed.
time. So I'm pretty sure it was City Walk or like one of the malls that had one of the AMC theaters. It was definitely an AMC, so it had to be one of the malls. Anyway, I went by myself because at that time, I think the only person that really watched it that I was hanging with was my roommate, but he was busy during that time as guest relations. So, yeah, no, or sorry, custodial. But I remember going, and like you said, I remember when you sit down, and I think again, it's so hard, and I think that's what gets so many people is you go in with such high expectations that if they're not met, like it's very difficult for you to want to say that that movie was good. So I try every time I go into movies now, I try to get rid of every expectation that I had. Because it just doesn't live, nothing is ever going to live up to what you have pictured in your head because something's always going to change. So I've tried to stop doing that with movies and TV shows. And it's actually helped me, I think, which, you know, and you and I are very similar where if it's entertaining, I'm going to like the movie and I'm not going to have much negative to say about it because it entertained me and that's what it's supposed to do. But with this, Jordan, when it said that Luke had gone missing, my first thought obviously is like, man, so we're going to get some Luke in here. Like we're going to get quite a bit of Luke, was my first thought.
That
But
was your
it
first
was,
thought? My first thought was the
yes,
opposite.
my first thought was like, okay, they're going to go looking for him. Whoever these new people are going to go looking for him. They're going to find him. And then that's when because, you know, like in A New Hope, it's like, okay, well,
True,
Obi-Wan
true, true,
is
true, true.
pretty early
That's a good
on.
point. That's a good
Like,
point.
so I
Yeah.
was kind of like, okay, so Luke's going to come on early, you
And
know,
Luke
maybe
was going to
halfway
say,
through.
"Now that's a name I have not heard in a long
Right.
time."
And because of all the lines that he had said in the teasers, I thought, wow, he's got quite a bit of lines that he says. So he's got to be in this movie quite a bit. And then then they're starting to do all the reunions, right? You're starting to see all these characters and all these things. But anyway, like that initial scroll through, like you said, chills obviously. I just remember people clapping. Um, it was one of those experiences that unless you have gone to, I would say, Endgame, this,
No Way Home,
No Way Home,
Infinity
maybe,
War.
yeah, maybe Infinity War, but not so much. Like those three are really because like Endgame was the climactic point of that.
Yeah, yeah.
So Infinity War, you kind of left like, what the hell just happened? Like getting beat up. But yeah, like this was like catching up with old friends that have been gone for a while, and you're just getting back together, and you feel like you left off and nothing has changed and you can get right back and comfortable with them because Jordan, I thought I was going to go into this movie and have some hesitancy, but as soon as this scroll started, I was like, man, we're back. We're right back to that feeling again.
Yeah, I mean, it truly was like a magical first watch. I just remember walking out being like high on Star Wars at that time, and I went back and saw it a second time.
I was going to say, was your first thought when you walk out of it saying, I got to see that again? Because that was mine. Like that was, I was like, yeah, I got to see that again.
I think so. I think I said like I think
Yeah.
I probably posted something similar on Facebook, like I can't wait to see it again type of thing. It wasn't like the John Locke like after they watched the Hatch
Yeah.
video and be like, we have to watch that again. I didn't look to my wife and say that, but you
We're
know,
gonna die if we don't.
you know, every 800 or 108 minutes I'm
Say not
going to
that
the
they're not
theater
all dead
to
anyway.
watch it. But it was just like, I don't know, it made me feel like Star Wars was back. And it was, right? Like this movie made like $2 billion. It was everybody was in it was in the zeitgeist. Everybody was talking about it. We even had the SNL sketches with Adam Driver as Kylo Ren, you know, doing his lab technician stuff on the Death Star or Star Killer base, you know, like there was this was people being like, "Oh my god, this is this is what's funny. It's because like the online discourse has changed so much in the 10 years. Everybody was like, this is better than the prequels. And then everybody switches up on that later. But people being like, oh my God, it's back. Like, here we are. There were some people then that would bring up the stuff of like, okay, it's kind of like A New Hope, but a little different. That didn't really bother me at all. I do think I was in my first watch, I was a little disappointed that Starkiller Base was the big thing, because it was like, okay, it is like a Death Star,
The Death Star, yeah,
but bigger, right? But also you have to think, how else can you keep escalating the stakes?
Yeah, what else are you gonna do?
So like,
right, authoritarian planet was my only thought. I remember that.
Or like I would love to just have, and what I would really love from like the Rey movie, if that gets off the ground, is
Please,
just have like villains be like pirates that she's facing, like, what I'm saying, or she's a Jedi dispatched on some sort of she's a Jedi dispatched on some sort of mission that doesn't always have to be like her facing a dark sider,
kind of
or
bounty hunter-esque, like bounty hunter-esque, or like Blacklist, like kind of thing, like where you're having like, that's what I always wanted in a Star Wars movie. That's what I thought Boba and Mando were going to be, which I love both of them, but
right.
I thought they were going to be more of like, which Boba Fett's kind of like that, where he's got there's different people he's interacting with, but
right.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Just kind of like, how like in Phantom Menace, we see Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon off on a mission for the Republic. I kind of thought like it'd be cool to just kind of see like a Jedi do that, with the New Republic.
I think with this one, because it's a new story, but it's still continuation of the same saga. I mean, that's kind of where you have to land. Like, I think you're 100% right. Yeah. What would be the next highest stake? It's either bring Darth Vader back from the dead, or
they don't give them ideas. They did that with Palpatine.
I think they took advantage of that. But no, like, you know what I mean? Like, that was the only thing that made sense if you were going to go non-Death Star route, which I think it makes perfect sense. And we can get into like why. I know we're not here to break down Force Awakens.
But I think we can talk about some of this stuff. So okay, let's talk about our favorite moments of the movie, and then also just kind of like what really worked for me. So like in this case, we have to kind of back up to the expanded universe books for a second. And in those books, Han Solo and Leia have kids. And they're called Jason Solo and Jaina Solo. And then you also have Luke, who has a kid with Mara Jade named Ben Skywalker. So they kind of took the Ben part of it, which was named after Obi-Wan, and gave that to Han and Leia, having a son named Ben. But what they did was they took Jason Solo, who turns to the dark side in the books, and gave that to Ben Solo, turning to the dark side. And I never liked the expanded universe when it got to... So I had some issues with the expanded universe. One thing is that they killed Chewie off. They throw a whole moon into him. Like, he dies, saving the kids in like one of the first books post Return of the Jedi, or it's in the New Jedi Order series. And I was bummed about that. So when they were like, we're getting rid of that, I'm like, great, Chewie's alive. Woo, we're not going to kill him off like a moon. But, I kind of figured going into this Han Solo was going to die, because Harrison Ford was very like, I don't want to do a lot of these movies. So I kind of went in thinking he's going to die, but it was still different seeing it happen. But I was hesitant on if Kylo Ren would be their son, because I felt like that'd be like, that's something I did not like in the older continuity. And I was like, why are we getting rid of it if we're going back to that? But I like the way it was executed here, because he's the one that kills his dad. He is this tortured soul. I know what I have to do. I don't know if I have the strength to do it. Like, I love that line, and how you see the light stop shining on his face when he turns fully to the dark side here and kills his dad. Like, that worked for me when I didn't think it was, I was kind of hesitant on that aspect of it and was kind of like, I don't want to go down that same path that the other books did. But it worked for me. I think that was something that I really enjoyed when I didn't think I would. And then so I guess what was your thoughts on Ben So, right? Like, now that you know what how long did it take for it to click?
Until I saw the movie, I had no idea what it meant. Like,
I know, but I mean, like,
just
after you saw it, were you like, that's why it says that?
Yes,
or were you okay.
yes, and like, you can't take pictures of that stuff, so
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
like, I'm not taking a picture of that. I don't know what it means. I just thought it was a way to label things because everything was kind of labeled weird. It was like, okay, like, I wasn't
Ray
too
Palp here. What is that?
Ray Palp, like, yeah, no, it didn't have that. But it was very strange. But no, I think it's what makes, and I don't know, this might be divisive. I'm not really on the Reddit stuff like you are, or like major into what the feedback is from the Star Wars fandom, just because I feel like it's a lose-lose with a lot of this stuff anymore, so I don't get too involved. But Jordan, I love Kylo Ren. He's my favorite villain. Just the complexity in his mind, because leading up to this, Jordan, we had the Count, we had Darth Maul and Vader, we had Palpatine, Grievous. Like, we had a lot of, like, and I would say Anakin is kind of troubled, but Anakin's pretty darn quick to get rid, to kind of get loose. He was always kind of a loose cannon, so you kind of saw it going that way. But like, Kylo is like, dude is a lover, not really a fighter, and you can see it, you can feel it, you can feel like he's really struggling with this, and there's so much depth with him that I think this is where the advantage is. I think the writing for these three are much better than what we got as the prequels. Like, I feel like it is so much more character development, so much more into like the psyche of this. Because especially in Rise, I was watching that today, I was like, man, I didn't realize how like psychological this ends up being. But yeah, this, again, I loved Ben because it is so well done, the way it is written. And I think people forget just how good Adam Driver is at times, because like, he plays this emotionless, but like, you can tell he feels deep down, like, you know how I mean, like, he presents to be emotionless, but
yeah,
he's
exactly. He wants to be like Darth Vader so much that he is
Yes.
putting on the facade of it. And
Yes.
I think why it works for me too is because we don't see his fall. So
Yep.
I think because Anakin in the prequels seems like he turns too quickly, right? I feel like he turns
Oh, it's
too
a quick,
quickly
yeah.
in Revenge of the Sith. And in this, he's just already evil. So like, Kylo's already fallen. So at this point, you don't have to worry about it feeling too quick. In fact, you're kind of like, when did this happen? How long has it been? We don't know. They try to fill those gaps up with some of the ancillary material, but I still don't think they've been able to fully tell the full story on it. But so that's something that I think works very well for Ben. I walked out of this movie thinking Rey was for sure a Skywalker as well here, because of
I remember that too.
how she was, handing the lightsaber to him, and the way that Han would be like telling Maz says like, so who's the girl? And then it cuts after Han, implying he tells her. We now know he probably had no fucking clue who she was.
Maz was just like, bro, who's the girl? Like,
that's Palpatine's granddaughter.
They were literally just like, no, literally, I don't know. Like, some girl we just picked up randomly.
She's nobody.
Yeah, she was flying the Falcon around. I don't know, with some stormtrooper.
I do wonder what, like, I'm assuming what the implication here is that like, she obviously, him being like, look, she's really strong with the Force out of nowhere, type of thing. And
did you not think maybe a Kenobi at some point? Because like, the whole you're gonna undo these restraints. was very Kenobi.
I've never thought Kenobi.
Yeah.
I always thought Luke. Kenobi would be a stretch because he would have had to have
Somebody.
some sort of fling with somebody that happened to impregnate them. And at this point, like, Rey's 19 as well. Obi-Wan had been dead for more than 30 years. So, I mean, it's kind of
No
a stretch.
Kenobiception.
Had to be like a great-granddaughter, like a granddaughter instead. And
right.
I think one thing that really pushed into the Skywalker territory as well is that narration from the Celebration teaser where Luke says, "The Force is strong in my family." You know, those are quotes obviously from Return of the Jedi, but how it ends with, "You have that power too." It's like, okay, that must be related to the family, right? Why else would you mention about your family?
But which it was, but not who
it was about Ben, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not, yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess we can kind of get into it with this here, kind of like the missed opportunities of it, which is they should have had a plan, and they didn't have 100%. A plan. It's very well documented that JJ got to do whatever he wanted. He was passing it off to Ryan, who got to do whatever he wanted, and they were going to pass it off to Colin Trevorrow, who got to do whatever he wanted. And
he sure did. Just like this.
Yeah, and Colin Trevorrow, they said, actually, you don't get to do what you want. We're going to give you back to J.J. Abrams.
It was like, JJ, please fix this. This is a mess.
Well, because I don't know if it was the Colin script. He was also having a flop in theaters at the time, but it was a kind of an indie movie. It wasn't like a big franchise movie he was struggling with. But he got the job because he brought back Jurassic World. So they're like, he brought back Jurassic Park. So they're like, hey, why don't we give that guy a chance to do it? And I don't know if they just didn't jive with it, or if it was his flop that was in theaters that they were like, we cannot have this happen. We need to course correct because people didn't like The Last Jedi. And they really had to talk JJ back into it. I think, again, he had declined, and then they were like, dude, like, we are effed. Like, please come back. And he did. Saved their asses. Made the deadline too. I mean, he got them to push it to December again, because originally it was supposed to be in the May of 2019 again. They kept trying to do this thing where they wanted to be in May, and then they had to keep pushing them because JJ be like, hey, I can't hit that date. Like, we're starting really late right now. I cannot make May of 2019. So they pushed it to December of 2019. One of the last movies some of us would see in theaters before COVID. But, there was no plan. There was no plan. And I think that's the thing that hurts the most is it feels... you can kind of tell there's no plan. So, there's some stuff in this movie when they're, like I said, so who's the girl? And they cut before anybody can answer. So you're like, oh, he's telling Maz who she is. And then she goes and gives him Luke's lightsaber. So obviously there's some sort of connection. But then the next movie says, you're nobody. You're right. And then the next movie says, actually, she's a Palpatine. You're like, what? They try to make it fit, and I think it does if you just kind of watch them probably back to back to back. It's probably whatever. But it just kind of sucks knowing that we were theorizing on stuff, and like,
there was no theory
know.
To be had.
Yeah, there was no clues. There was
this is Jordan. I want to say, and I know that Martin had an idea of what's going on with Game of Thrones because he'd written the books, so like there was a plan there. But I really do still feel like that, like, this kind of shocked a lot of the fandom of Game of Thrones. Kind of has that feeling of like, did you have a plan? Because it sure didn't seem like you had a plan. And then now with Stranger Things, I can feel it. I can feel that same, like, do the Duffers have a plan? And because Jordan, like, this is kind of giving me the PTSD. I was like wondering, like, where is this coming from? Like this PTSD of like, did the Duffers have an idea? Because it sure sounds like they're making this up as they go. Which I know it's not possible to think about all these scenarios in which you want to take. Things change, stories change. I thought it was a disastrous idea that they went with the 3. I do remember that when that was announced, I was like, that's kind of weird, because unless you've got really strong writers that know what they're doing, that know this story, I'm concerned. I was really excited about JJ because I really like JJ. I do remember that. I didn't know anything about Rian Johnson.
He had not done much at the time. Ryan had did Looper, and he did like Brothers Bloom and Brick. But he was mostly known for Breaking Bad. He actually directed Ozymandias, which is one of the highest rated TV episodes of all time.
It is the highest rated, almost. Yeah.
10 out of 10. So,
but I just like, I think what you said, the biggest missed opportunity was obviously that you have it down in the notes. That's a really good one. I'll let you read. But like that honestly, Jordan, every single one of them, maybe not Leia, just because the untimely passing of Carrie. I think everybody in that story had great story development.
Yes, yeah.
Except for Rey. It was kind of like and luckily JJ saves that at the end pretty well. Like I think he did a really good job of like, here's what she is, and maybe that, you know, is the Rey that's going to happen, is it post Rise?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe that's where we get that. That's what I would like. Maybe that's what needs to happen. Like that's why I'm always hopeful it happens, because I want to see, because I think we could get explanation. I think we could get some flashback of like, I always had these weird, you know, visions, or like, you know, and maybe she can tie that into the past, you know, and my God, I hope they don't do any time traveling, but yes, I think, I think we could use Rey to be like, tell us your past, because as a Palpatine, like, who are your parents? And maybe she's figuring out who her parents are through somebody else, right? So I think Rey's story is still undone, but yes, I think that was the biggest missed opportunity. Was you have a great character in Rey and one of the best actresses in Daisy Ridley, and you kind of whiffed.
It's because they really wanted to keep everything a mystery that they decided to keep it a mystery from themselves as well while they were writing it.
They were like, what should we write next?
Which can work. There's some shows that made it up as they went along. Breaking Bad is notorious for making it up as they go along, and they have like a really great bit of run there, but it was not the best. Another one I have here is the one I always come back to, is not having the full gang together in the cockpit of the Falcon for one last time. Because Luke is lost and Han dies in this, even with Carrie's passing, there was no way to get all 3 of them back together because Han had already died. So kind of a bummer that we don't have that. That's kind of the one that I always kind of come back to, that we all thought we were going to get. I feel like we all thought we were going to get that when they said Episode 7's coming, and we're getting Carrie back, we're getting Mark back, and we're getting Harrison Ford back somehow. And we were like, we want to see them interact, and we don't get to see them interact like at all.
It would have been easy, Jordan, to have, I think, instead of, I think, locating him and then taking him to confront Ben, but ultimately Harrison or Han Solo is the one that ultimately has that interaction, because I don't think the story really changes at all if Luke is there, besides him being grumpy and throwing shit off the cliff. I don't think that changes much. Like, I think you could still, you know what I mean? Like, you could still write that story of like what happened, and Luke is still very hesitant about telling you what happened. He doesn't want you to know what happened. But then they could go back to the Jedi Temple and be like, this is what happened. Like, it could have been, Luke could have been along for the ride, and we do see him riding and Carrie's there with him, and then they drop Carrie off, like, you know, kind of thing. Like, I'll do this. I'll go talk to your son, kind of thing. Maybe leave Luke there. I don't know. But you could have done it.
I'll say, like, you know, as much as people want to say these movies rely on nostalgia, I will say, even though it's a missed opportunity of mine, kind of kudos to them for not just being like, let's get all these guys together and force it in there. I mean, they did what they wanted to do. So it's just kind of, as a fan, it's just kind of a bummer. Some other favorite moments, though, you and I quote this together all the time. It's the Conja Club. Guavian Death Gang, you know, the Balatique who says, "Tell that to Conja Club." I
didn't have a deal with Conja Club.
I just love those.
Who's Conja Club?
I also really love Takodana, which is Maz's planet. I just love the look of that and the castle that she has. I just think it's all great.
It did kind of have Cantina vibes to it. I remember that.
Yeah,
when I
it's
first
kind of
watched
like
it. I was kind of like, "Oh, that's kind of Cantina-ish."
Yeah, it's their scene that showcases all the new aliens they have and everything.
Yeah. I guess this is a good moment to do it. Like I think honestly, and I remember this being a thing. Do you remember this? They thought maybe Poe and Finn were going to get together.
Yes.
I remember
people
that.
were reading into that. It's kind of like a Mike and Will
yes, very much
situation
so.
from Stranger
Which
Things.
honestly, like I could have seen it, but like I'd forgotten, Jordan, just how much, and now I realize why I have this merchandise that'll show later, but how much I love Poe Dameron and Finn's dynamic.
And he was going to die.
And,
did you know that?
I know. Yes.
Yeah, right when that scene where the thing gets swollen up, he was actually supposed to die there.
Yep. But yeah, Jordan, I just that, and then just all the quotes. Like, did you know Luke? And he goes, "Yeah, I knew him." Kind of like, like, of course I did. But then when Finn's talking to Solo, and he goes, "Hey, Solo," he goes, "Did you just call me Solo?" And he goes, "Oh, sorry, Han. I mean, Mr. Solo."
That movie doesn't come out till 2018.
Yeah. That's great.
And it always makes me laugh, but when BB-8 gives Rey the directions and then Finn gives him the thumbs up and he pulls out the lighter as a thumbs up. I love that so much.
Yep. I remember too, Finn goes, "What should we do with her?" And Solo goes, "Is there a garbage chute or like a trash compactor?" And Finn goes, "Yes, there is."
Yes. Yeah.
Like, that is solid.
Yeah, so many good moments in this movie. I was watching it last night while I was wrapping some Christmas gifts with my Force Awakens Christmas paper. Look at that.
That's awesome. I love that. That's like a relic, isn't it?
Yeah, I just opened up the roll of it actually because we had quite a few of these that we had for a while. But I was like, I'm watching it and I'm wrapping Joy's Christmas gifts, so I'm going to use the Force Awakens paper today. Before we get into favorite pieces of merchandise, just kind of talking about briefly what came after this. This movie made $2 billion. It was beloved, I would say, by most people. And then Rogue One came out the next year and people loved Rogue One. And then start to get the shift here. 2017, The Last Jedi comes out and it is divisive. You kind of get Solo not doing so well, and then the divisive Revenge of the Sith, Rise of Skywalker. So you just kind of rewatched Last Jedi and Rise. Any thoughts, like short thoughts on those before we get to the 10-year anniversaries of those down the line?
Yeah, I can't wait to do the Last Jedi one because it's I was listening to a podcast, Boy Meets World has a podcast, like the three of them are doing one, and they said that Jordan, this is a common phenomenon with moviegoers. Like there is always a movie because something in your life or something when you watch it just doesn't quite click with when you watch it. I've now watched The Last Jedi multiple times, right, over the last couple of years, and I actually really like The Last Jedi now.
There you go.
I think
that's
really
what this
good.
whole podcast was for. Actually,
I know you were just trying to set me up. Don't go back and listen to our recap because I remember being the last one you went to, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, was I the only one that didn't like this movie?"
It was during it was during the Disney podcast, Find the Dreams, that I had. We had a. I'll see if maybe I can dig up the stuff of it and maybe put it on the feed or something. But it was a messy roundtable because we had my roommate Andrew, my wife, my sister, her ex-husband, and you, and we went all around the table. Yeah, and I did save you for last because I think I knew you already didn't like it, and we were getting all the praise out of the way when I then said, "All right, Logan, tell us why we're wrong."
Yes. which I think it made for compelling content at the time. We weren't great podcasters at the time because Jordan, I've listened to a couple episodes from back then.
It was very
were
early.
rough.
2017 is when I started. It was
we were
like 3
rough.
months in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I love The Last Jedi now.
good. I saw it 5 times in theaters. And actually, my second time was 8 years ago today. I was just doing time hop earlier.
Oh, that's
It was
crazy.
8 years ago today that I saw it the second time.
You and I recorded our Skeleton Crew something on this day last year. I forget what it was, but
did we do
I think it was
Skeleton
the
Crew?
first episode. Yeah, you and I did something on the Skeleton. It popped up on my timeline.
Oh, were you like filling in for Ron or something?
I think
one
so.
day?
Yeah, I think it was Skeleton Crew. It just popped up on my memories.
Yeah. If not, it would have been Clone Wars or
Something like that. Might have
one
been
of them.
that.
Bad
Something.
Batch, maybe. But yeah. Anyway, you've been on here a few times.
Yeah.
Okay, favorite piece of merchandise. Let's get to it, and then we'll wrap us up here. I'm gonna share yours here.
Okay.
Poe
It's right
Dameron.
here too.
Oh, you
It's
also
on my
have it
desk.
live.
Yeah, he's on my desk. Yeah, my Poe Dameron. It's got the Force Awakens sticker on the top.
Did you get
of
it then, or did you buy it later?
I got this then, Jordan.
Okay.
I got this at it's all beat to hell. I got it. Where did I get it? Once Upon a Toy, I think.
Oh,
But yeah, it's all messed up. Or no, this was the Hot Topic one. Yes, this okay. No, I know where I got this. The other one's from Once Upon a Toy. There's a Ray I have. Hot Topic. No, there was a mall by where we lived in 2016. So it wasn't before the movie. It was definitely after, but they still had Poe, and I got it because it was a Hot Topic exclusive. So yeah, no, I bought that. That was one of my first. That and Ray were one of my first purchases. Ray might have been first actually. But yeah, no, that's my favorite. Poe Dameron. After watching this movie, Jordan, I now remember why I bought Poe Dameron. Because I loved him so much. And he gets even better. And I think that he and Finn's dynamic really carry a lot of that movie. Not that it needed much carrying because I think, Jordan, like recency biased, I think it's my favorite Star Wars movie. It goes back and forth between this one and Empire. But yeah, that's my toy. And I had it forever. So
nice. Yeah, I have a couple options here. I really like the BB-8 Sphero droid. I used to, drive that around all the time with my phone on the hardwood floors and everything around the house. And also the Vinylmation.
Vinylmations. No way.
I have I think the full set of these. Yeah, for people who don't know what they are, they were my Funko Pops before Funko Pops. They were vinyl figures, all in the shape of Mickey Mouse, that had painted different faces on them. So, like, they have Kylo Ren and Rey, Finn, Poe, Stormtrooper, BB-8, and C-3PO is this set. And I think Han Solo may have been the chase. I forget if that's right. But really, really love that. And I also really love my Force Awakens art book, but that kind of came out, I think, well after the movie was done, like a year later that came out. But yeah, really love the Vinylmations and wish they never went out of style.
I'm afraid for Funko. That's why.
Me too. Me too. I'm a stockholder of Funko. Actually,
I was gonna say it sounds like it's not doing well. So I've got a lot over here on this wall. A lot of Ted Lasso. And everything else is pretty much Star Wars. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Anything else about the Force Awakens?
No, this was fun. I mean, happy anniversary to Force Awakens. I think this was. I tried to think about this too. Like Jordan, this could be the first gateway into Star Wars for a lot of fans.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking too. Like, think of this: if it was a kid's first Star Wars movie at 6 or 7 years old, they're 16 to 18 right now. And when that Rey movie comes out or the next trilogy comes out, with these characters in it. We'll see these characters again. The good thing is these actors are young. We'll see these characters again before 30 years, like we had to wait for the original trilogy. But we'll see these characters again. Those people who grew up with this movie will show up for it, and those are the characters they connected to. And it'd be really great to see some of these characters again, because you're right. I don't think we got enough time with some of these characters. I would have loved to see more Finn. Finn really doesn't get much of an arc after the first movie.
Yeah.
I would love to see more Poe and more Rey, especially now that she is, starting over. We're kind of at the same point of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
So where Luke was building something. Let's have Rey be successful in this case. It is kind of a bummer that everything fell apart for Luke, but I'm hoping we don't start off and it's like the New Republic has fallen again. The Second Order is facing off against Rey.
Rey has revived Luke from the dead.
Yeah, Kylo Ben is the villain.
Yeah.
Like I'm hoping we just
Club is taking over the world.
I'm kind of hoping we just get new threats, new stuff that is different. And I know we talked about
need a new baddie, Jordan.
I do say that. I think we had a conversation in 2020 early after the end of Rise of Skywalker where we were talking about where do we want this franchise to go next, and it was like new era, new stuff. Like just push forward with new villains, new stuff. Like don't just keep doing Rebels versus the Empire. We got to do something new, and I'm hoping we do.
Maybe Luke was right. Maybe it's time for the Jedi to end.
Maybe.
What if Rey kills all the children?
She's the new bad guy.
She's the new Anakin.
Kylo Rey.
Yeah, it's just her longing over Kylo.
Yeah, she's got the cross guard lightsaber and everything.
She just tries to be like him, real angry, just starts smashing stuff.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Logan, for coming back on and talking The Force Awakens, because this is fun. 10 years already. I can't believe it, but we won't stop here. We got next year is the 10th of Rogue One. 2027 has a lot. We have the 50th of A New Hope, which will be in theaters. We'll have the 25th of Attack of the Clones, and then we'll have the 10th of The Last Jedi. So we'll have a lot of anniversary specials that we'll be getting to in 2027. On top of that, the new Starfighter movie with Ryan Gosling will be coming out. So we'll have quite a lot in 2027 of Star Wars content, as we're kind of in a lull here while we wait for the Darth Maul cartoon and Ahsoka Season 2 to come out. So, but that's that. If you want to contact us, you can contact us at SupesandSabers or still at podawakens@gmail.com. Thank you, Theo Bibble, for that. And we will catch you all next time. Here on Supes and Sabers, we'll have some DC and Marvel news coming up soon, I believe. But in the meantime, we'll have Stranger Things in the new year, Volume 2 and 3 discussion coming on the pod as well. And then we'll start looking at A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. The new Game of Thrones show should be premiering in January as well. So we got lots of good stuff coming up on Supes and Sabers, so make sure you follow us there. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you next time.